Joining me now, Fox News political contributor and independent Women's Voice president, great columnist, writer, thinker, Tammy Bruce. What's going on,
I'm glad
Tammy?
you got the check.
Right. I want the next one coming tomorrow.
Thank you, dear. Well, look, my column's up today, and this is not new. This is not new news. What was shocking to me was a CDC report that came out about last week that noted, and it obviously should alarm all of us, that the drug overdose deaths and the suicides are at historic highs, right? In just 2017, over 72,000 people died from drug overdoses. That is more than the U.S. deaths in the Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan wars combined. In 1 year in this country, suicides are at their historic high, about 49,000 suicides also in 2017. And the CDC doesn't want to speculate, they say, on the cause, but what they do recognize also is the importation of drugs, the opioid epidemic, people now moving from prescription drug dynamic because we're at war with that, so they've turned to heroin. And then there is fentanyl, which is now the new synthetic opioid, which kills you pretty much right away. It's a tiny, tiny amount that will kill you. We've got single individuals bringing into the country, and somebody was caught just a few weeks ago, bringing it over enough that would kill 300 million Americans. And because it takes so little to end up killing you. Yeah. Now, this is at the border. 80% of the fentanyl in this country comes in through the southern border, and also China is involved in that facilitation as well.
And so it's just 2 milligrams. We just showed the stat, 78 million. That's based on the amount of fentanyl seized at the border last year in the first quarter of this year. Life expectancy has been dragged down by what's going on.
That is correct, right? Because you've got middle-aged individuals, right? You've got those are the individuals who are dying too early because of the drug addiction and because of suicide. Now, look, we know that one thing we know about suicide is it's usually not one issue. It can be a multitude of issues. But when you're also dealing with drug addiction, any addiction, certainly alcoholism, but the opioid addiction creates a hopelessness. We've dealt with now, we're, thank goodness, in an economic recovery, but the last 10 years, people losing their homes, losing their savings, losing their jobs. That combined with drug addiction, and then, of course, President Obama, we lost our hospitals and our doctors and any real access to health care. That, we think, of course, has contributed to the nature of the suicide choice. So that in and of itself, because of the core of the people affected, is dragging down the U.S. life expectancy.
It's astonishing, that founding. You know, President Trump is saying China will try to stop the importation of fentanyl into our country. I mean, that's part of the trade deal. But Thomas Homan, to your point, former acting ICE director, said, you know, having the troops at the border is making the drug cartels berserk and crazy. He told us that on this show last week.
Yeah. You know, what they've done is, because of the caravan, we've obviously boosted up the numbers. And the cartels, which have relied on kind of a lax framework, are furious because it's affecting their ability to move the drugs in. This is why when we talk about the wall, it's not just about we need an orderly framework that happens at the border, but we must take seriously what's going on and how these drugs are moving into the country. When 80% of fentanyl is coming in through the southern border, and by the way, the majority of heroin as well is not coming from Afghanistan. It's grown in Mexico. It's cultivated there and moved in through Mexico. So the wall is something that not only are we dealing with keeping, you know, bad guys out and killers and, you know, all of that and the human trafficking, but to stop this, when you've got 3 wars of the deaths combined, including Vietnam, in 1 year, how is this not a war? All the American people deserve to be taken seriously and to have
Is a Trump White House capitalizing on this, or what you're talking about?
Look, they've got to talk more about the other issues that are involving the wall and why this matters. People know that the opioid crisis and the prescription drugs, right, OxyContin. We know that there's a heroin problem. People don't know that people have gone to street drugs when they can't get a prescription, and where that's coming from. When you think of heroin, you think of the poppy fields in Afghanistan. Yeah. They've got to talk more about this. This transcends political parties, economic status. All of those things, and I wish the president would speak more about it.
Tammy Bruce, you're going to be with us later in the show. Great information.